I'm Anil Kumar, and in this video we'll broadly discuss absolute functions, and basically we are dealing with equations involving absolute functions and inequalities. So these are the two topics which we are going to discuss at length in this particular video. We'll follow up with more examples on solving equations and inequalities where we have absolute function. Now, how to solve absolute function equations? Now, whenever you have an absolute function equation, you expect either one solution, you can expect two solutions, you can expect no solution at all, or you can expect many solutions. So all cases are possible, right? So all cases are possible. Let me give you examples, right? So one solution, two solution, no solution, and many solution. One solution. If I write absolute x minus 5 equals to 0, in that case, the only value which satisfies this particular equation is 5. So x equals to 5 is the solution and is the only solution, correct? So that is how we get one solution. Now, if I write absolute x minus 5 equals to, let us say, a number 1, in that case we will get two solutions. The reason is that we'll actually solve for two equations. One will be x minus 5 equals to 1, and the other will be x minus 5 equals to minus 1. Since absolute value of minus 1 is also 1, right? So this will give us solution as x equals to 1 plus 5, which is 6, and this will give us x equals to minus 1 plus 5, which is 4, correct? So if we substitute 4 here, 4 minus 5 is minus 1, absolute value is 1. If I substitute 6, 6 minus 5 is 1, and absolute value of 1 is 1. So there are two solutions, you can see, right? Now, no solution will be, let me write down x plus 7, something here, and I say is equals to some negative value. As you know, absolute function is always positive, so this kind of an equation will never have any solution, correct? So that is how we say that this absolute function has no solution at all. Now we'll get back to many solutions. Now many solutions in absolute equations will be basically in the form of an inequality. So we'll not really have many solutions when only one absolute function is involved, but if we have more than one absolute function, we can get many solutions, right? So many solutions when we have more than one absolute function, or we have an inequality which will give us many solutions, correct? So we'll, for the time being, not give an example here and move on to inequalities. Now in case of inequalities, normally we will get interval as an solution, right? There will be an interval which will indicate a solution. And if you have an equation which is of the form, let us say absolute x minus 2 is less than 5, let us say, right? That means we are looking for all the values within an interval. So on a number line, I could show the solution as center point being 2, right? So from x minus 2 means if I make it 0, x is 2, for example, right? X 2. I'm looking for values which are 5 units away from this particular point, right? So absolute function by definition is, when we say less than 5, that means everything within that interval, 5 away. So 5 away from 2 on the right side will be 7, and if I take away 5, I get minus 3. Do you see how I get it? So this is without any calculation. This I get 2 plus 5, and here I get 2 minus 5. correct? So anything in between, since it is kind of like this, we will say that our solution for this equation could be represented with a hole at -3, with a hole at 7, and everything in between, right? So that is how we get the solution. Now, to solve such an inequality, the strategies which you will learn are kind of like this. One is, you could write this as x minus 2 should be less than 5 but greater than -5, right? And to solve this, we can add 2 on both sides. So we have -5 plus 2 is less than x minus 2 plus 2 is less than 5 plus 2. So -2 plus 2 is 0. So we are left with x in the center. Do you see that? And 7 here, and -5 plus 2 is -3. So we get the solution which we got by the very basic definition. Do you understand? So in general, the inequalities will be solved like this. And not to give you more details, if I would have had an equation x minus 2, I'm taking this, let's say, greater than equal to 5. In that case, well, you should expect solution as not these points but beyond these points, correct? So you expect a solution not these, because they are for less than 5. Greater than equal to means away from these points, right? So away from these points, and these points are -3 and 7 for you, correct? So that becomes the solution shown in green, correct? So that is how you can actually solve greater than. So you're going away by 5 units, but in either case, in inequalities, you had number of values as your solution, correct? So that is how you could get many solutions. But there could be cases where inequality will give all real numbers as solution, or just one value, or no solution, right? So for example, I have an inequality which is absolute x is less than 0, right? So in this case, absolute function is greater than or equal to 0. It is never less, so we have no solution, correct? No solution. So at times for inequality, you could have no solution, and on a number line, it'll be kind of a blank line. Or if I write absolute x is greater than -1, in that case, all real numbers becomes the solution. So I'll say, well, in this case, the solution is all real numbers, since absolute value is always possible, is always positive, and therefore greater than 1. So you get many solutions for this case also, right? So that is how you could actually get more solutions or less solutions for such an equation. Now coming back to absolute functions and many solutions, if I have an equation which is absolute x divided by x as equals to 1, for example. Now, if I have this particular equation, can you tell me what are the solutions for this equation? Now, that's a very interesting case. We'll be dealing with this example in more details. But, absolute function, if it is greater than or equal to 0, then it is positive, right? And if it is less than 0, then it is negative. So what we find here, that of course x is never equals to 0, because then the function is not defined, but all values which are x greater than 0 will be part of solution of this particular equation, correct? Will be a part of solution, right? So that is our function. This is the values of x. So you'll notice that there could be many solutions to an equation also, but only thing here is that more than one function is kind of involved, right? Then you have situations where we may have many solutions, correct? So in this video, what we learned is that generally equations can have one to no solutions, or many solutions when more than one function is involved. And in inequalities, we normally get interval as a solution, but there could be situations where we may get many solutions. And I forgot to mention here, you could get one solution also. So what we do here is give you an example let us say this is an example which has only one solution. Let us say this is the solution, 5 is my solution, right? So can you tell me what kind of inequality will have just one solution, and that is 5? This is your question. So one solution. Can you write down absolute function whose solution is just 5? Well, think about it. And here is the solution. It could be x minus 5 as less than equal to 0. If you solve this equation, which is an inequality, you have only one solution. You get the idea, right? So that scenario of having one solution is also possible in inequalities. Similarly, there could be a scenario with no solution at all, right? So means no solution. There are many situations where you could have inequality without any solution. For example, if I write absolute x is less than minus 1, we know absolute x is always positive. It cannot be less than any negative number, right? And therefore, that kind of an equation will have no solution, right? So just as we had here, we have a similar example for inequalities also. So what you learn here is that normally for equations we have limited number of solutions. For inequalities we have a range of solutions, but there could be situations where for equation we may get range, and for inequality we may get limited number of solutions. I hope that gives you a fairly good idea. We'll explore more in details about difficult absolute function equations and inequalities to solve. Thank you and all the best.